To my granddaughter, Alexandra, the lawyer read for my grandfather's will. I leave my property in West Texas, all 500 acres. The reading room erupted in laughter. My Uncle James actually slapped, his knee, tears forming in his eyes. Old man really got you good, didn't he, Alex? I sat quietly in my corner of the mahogany-panelled office, watching my family's amusement at what they considered the ultimate joke inheritance, the worthless desert land that my grandfather had bought decades ago for pennies an acre. At least you got something. My cousin Peter smirked. Even if it is just sand and rinse snakes, my mother touched my arm sympathetically. Darling, maybe we can sell it? There must be someone who wants desert more laughter. My family was enjoying this too much. The black sheep getting exactly what they thought she deserved. While my cousins received shares in the family investment firm and prime real estate in Manhattan, I got dirt in Texas. Please, continue, Mr. Harrison, my Aunt Margaret said, wiping away tears of mirth. What else did Father leave? But I wasn't listening anymore. I was remembering the last conversation I'd had with my grandfather, just 2 weeks before he passed. Alex, he'd said, his voice weak, but his eyes sharp as ever. You're the only one who ever listened, the only one who asked questions. The others, he'd waved his hand dismissively. They only saw what was right in front of them. At the time, I thought he was rambling. Now, watching my family's casual dismissal of his worthless gift, I wondered if there had been more to his words. The next morning, I sat in my tiny Manhattan apartment, spreading out old maps and property documents across my kitchen table. The land had been in my grandfather's possession for over 40 years, purchased when he was still building his fortune. My phone buzzed. A text from Peter. Hey, want to trade my Manhattan brownstone for your rattlesnake ranch? I ignored it, focusing instead on the geological surveys I pulled up on my laptop. Something about the property's location. Knack at my memory, grandfather had been many things, but he'd never been one to waste money even on a joke. Another buzz, my mother this time. Darling, your Uncle James says he'll take the land off your hands for $5,000 just to be kind. Kind, right? My Uncle James, who managed the family's investment portfolio, had never been kind about anything in his life. If he was interested in my worthless inheritance, there had to be a reason I spent the next week diving deep into research, geological reports, mineral rights documents, historical land surveys I called in favours from college friends who worked in resource exploration. Every night, after my job at an environmental consulting firm, I stayed up late studying everything I could about West Texas land rights. You're wasting your time, my sister Diana told me over coffee. It's just Grandpa's last little jab at the family disappointment. You know how he felt about you turning down the job at the family firm. But that wasn't quite right. Grandfather hadn't been disappointed when I chose environmental science over finance. He'd been interested. He'd asked questions about my work, about modern survey techniques, about the changing energy landscape. The world's changing. Alex, he'd said during one of our last conversations, the future isn't in pushing paper around Wall Street. It's in understanding what's under our feet. 2 weeks after the will reading, I took a flight to Texas. My family thought I was crazy. More texts poured in. Lost your mind? 'Cause there's nothing out there but dust. Peter darling, please be reasonable. Come home and we'll sort this out. Mum, $10,000 cash for the land. Final offer, Uncle James. The last one made me pause. Uncle James had doubled his offer. He'd never doubled anything in his life, unless he thought there was profit in it. The land was exactly as advertised. 500 acres of seemingly empty desert stretching to the horizon. But as I walked the property with a local guide, something felt different. The rock formations, the subtle changes in elevation, the way the ground felt under our feet, Mom, the guide said, stopping to pick up a rock. You know anything about geology? I nodded. Environmental science. major specialized in resource management. He handed me the rock. Then you might be interested in this. I turned the sample over in my hands, my heart starting to race, the composition, the color, the weight, all of it pointing to one incredible possibility. That night, I made some calls. Within a week, a preliminary survey team was on site. 2 weeks later, I had the first test results in my hands. Oil not just a little, but a massive deposit made newly accessible by modern extraction techniques. The worthless desert land sat on top of what could be one of the largest new oil fields discovered in the last decade. My grandfather hadn't given me worthless land. He'd given me an empire in waiting. I kept everything quiet, working through shell companies and confidential contracts. I used my environmental background to ensure we could extract the resources sustainably, minimizing impact on the fragile desert ecosystem. 6 months passed. My family had mostly forgotten about their amusement at my inheritance, too busy with their own important business dealings to notice what I was building. The first hint that something was happening came when Uncle James spotted a consulting firm's report about new oil exploration in West Texas. He called me immediately. "Alex, about that land. I've been thinking $50,000 seems fair for worthless desert." I smiled into the phone. "No thank you, Uncle James. I think I'll hold on to it." "Don't be stubborn," he snapped. "You don't know anything about managing property. Let the family handle it." Family. They'd never considered me part of the real family business. I was just the cousin who studied rocks and trees instead of finance. "Actually," I said quietly, "I know exactly what I'm doing." The next day, I filed the final paperwork to create Desert Crown Energy. The preliminary valuation, based on confirmed oil reserves and extraction rights, was just over $300 million. My phone started buzzing again. "Alex, darling, let's have dinner. Talk about your little property." "Mum, hey, 'cause remember all the good times we had about that land?" "Peter, this is family business. You need our expertise." Uncle James, I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on building something they'd never imagined possible, an energy company that combined profitable extraction with environmental responsibility. But the real shock was still to come, because what my family did know, what even the preliminary surveys hadn't revealed, was that the oil deposit was just the beginning. Under that worthless desert lay something even more valuable. My grandfather had known. That's why he bought the land all those years ago, waiting for the right person, someone who would look deeper, who would understand both the science and the business to inherit it. As I sat in my new office, reviewing the latest geological reports, I thought about the family meeting scheduled for tomorrow. They still didn't know about Desert Crown Energy, still didn't know that their worthless joke inheritance was about to revolutionize the energy industry in Texas. I picked up an old photograph from my desk. My grandfather and me at my college graduation, and beamed me with pride while the rest of the family looked on in confusion at my impractical degree choice. "You always did like to play the long game, didn't you?" "Grandpa," I whispered to his smiling image. My assistant knocked softly. "Miss Bennett, the investment bankers are here for the IPO meeting." I stood up, straightening my suit. Time to show my family exactly what their black sheep had built in the desert. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's proving yourself so right that they can't ignore it. And I was about to prove something that would shake the entire family to its core. The worthless desert was just the beginning. What lay beneath it would change everything. The morning of the family meeting, I stood in my office at Desert Crown Energy's headquarters, watching the sun rise over the Texas landscape that had changed my life. The worthless desert now bustled with carefully controlled activity, state-of-the-art drilling equipment, environmental monitoring stations, and something else. Something my family still didn't know about. My phone buzzed with a message from Uncle James' meeting postponed. "What do you mean? We need to come to Texas," I smiled, remembering his last attempt to buy my inheritance. He'd offered $100,000 last week, acting like he was doing me a favor. The oil rights alone were worth thousands of times that, but what we discovered beneath the oil would make that look like pocket change. My assistant Sarah knocked softly. "Miss Bennett, your grandfather's old files have been digitized as requested." I nodded, thinking about the encrypted USB drive I found hidden in my grandfather's desk after his death. The one containing 40 years of private geological surveys, mineral analysis, and one word that had made my heart stop when I first read it: lithium. The oil had just been the beginning, a valuable smokescreen for something far more precious. Beneath the oil deposits lay one of the largest lithium reserves ever discovered in North America. In an age of electric vehicles and renewable energy storage, it was worth billions. My grandfather had known he'd spent decades quietly buying up mineral rights, conducting secret surveys, waiting for the right moment and the right here to develop it properly. The family's jets are landing. Sarah reported. All of them insisted on bringing their own lawyers. Of course they did. They still thought this was about oil rights. Still thought they could strong-arm their way into controlling my little desert project. I straightened my custom-made suit, worth more than Uncle James's last insulting offer, and headed to the conference room. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see 3 private jets taxiing to a stop at our private airfield. One by one, they filed in Uncle James in his Wall Street powers, suit already rehearsing his takeover speech, Cousin Peter trying to look important in designer Italian wool that was completely wrong for Texas heat, my mother elegant as always, but clearly uncomfortable outside her Manhattan comfort zone. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins all wearing expressions that mix condescension with poorly hidden greed. "Alex." "Darling?" My mother started. "What is all this drama about? Why couldn't we meet at the family office like civilized people? Because I said, calmly, I wanted you to see exactly what you've been trying to buy for pennies." I pressed a button, and the conference room's smart glass windows cleared, revealing the full scope of Desert Crown. Energy's operations, state-of-the-art drilling equipment stretched across the horizon, but more importantly, specialized lithium extraction facilities were being constructed behind it. Uncle James's face went pale. What is all this? This?" I gestured to the vista before us is what grandfather left me. Not worthless desert, but the future of energy in America. I clicked a remote, and screens around the room lit up with geological surveys, mineral rights documents, and financial projections. The oil field alone is worth approximately $300 million, I continued. Desert Crown. Energy is already one of the most profitable new energy companies in Texas, but that's not why you're here. "There's more." Peter's voice cracked slightly. I smiled. Grandfather didn't just give me oil rights, he gave me what lies beneath them. One of the largest lithium deposits ever discovered in North America. The room erupted in chaos. Lawyers frantically flipped through documents. Family members who laughed at my inheritance now sat in stunned silence. "Impossible," Uncle James finally managed. "The surveys, when we looked years ago, the surveys show what grandfather wanted them to show." I cut him off. He spent 40 years preparing this land, buying up mineral rights, keeping the truth hidden until the right moment. "But why you?" My mother burst out. "Why not James or Peter or—" "Because I was the only one who ever looked deeper," I said quietly. The only one who studied the science, who cared about more than just quick profits. Grandfather knew that developing this land properly required someone who understood both the business and the environmental implications. I clicked to the next slide, Desert Crown Energy's current valuation. The number made several of my cousins physically gasp with the lithium deposits. I continued, Desert Crown Energy's IPO is expected to value the company at over $5 billion. And that's just the beginning. Uncle James stood up, his face flushed. Now see here, this is family business. You can't possibly handle something of this magnitude alone. We should, what I raised an eyebrow, take control like you tried to do by offering me pennies for my inheritance. This isn't family business. Uncle James, this is my business. We could contest the will. One of the lawyers suggested. Weakly, I laughed. Go ahead, grandfather, left extensive documentation, explaining exactly why he chose me as his heir. But more importantly, I gestured to the operation outside. I've spent the last year building something none of you could have imagined. This company, these facilities that are all mine. My mother tried a different approach. Darling, think about family legacy. Surely we can work something out. Legacy. I turned to face her like the legacy of mocking my career choices, of dismissing my education as worthless. That legacy, I walked to the window, watching teams of geologists and engineers going about their work. I am thinking about legacy. I'm building a company that will help power the future, not just through oil, but through sustainable energy storage solutions. I'm creating jobs, developing new extraction technologies, protecting the environment, while producing resources the world desperately needs. At least give us a chance to invest, Peter pleaded. We have capital. No, I turned back to face them. Desert Crown, energy doesn't need your money. In fact, I smiled slightly. As of this morning, we've acquired controlling interest in the family investment firm. Uncle James choked on his water. What, those shell companies buying up shares over the past 6 months? They work for me. The family firm's oil and gas investments aligned perfectly with Desert Crown's expansion plans. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. I hadn't just built a successful company, I'd outmaneuvered them at their own game. Now, I said, gathering my papers, if you'll excuse me, I have an IPO to prepare for Sarah. We'll show you to your planes. Wait, my mother called as I reached the door. What about family? What about all of us? I paused, thinking about years of dismissal and mockery of being the family disappointment. You know what? I've learned, I said quietly. Family isn't about blood or inheritances, it's about belief. Grandfather believed in me when none of you did. He saw potential where you saw worthless desert. I opened the door. If you want to be part of this company's future, you can buy shares. After the IPO. Like everyone else, the next few months were a whirlwind of activity. The IPO exceeded all expectations, valuing Desert Crown Energy at nearly $7 billion. News of the lithium deposits sent shockwaves through the energy industry. Every major technology company in the world wanted contracts for our lithium supply. My family made various attempts at reconciliation. Uncle James tried to arrange meetings through business contacts. Peter sent elaborate gifts to my office. My mother wrote long emails about family unity and shared success. I archived them all, unread. 1 year after that family meeting, I stood in my grandfather's old study, now relocated to Desert Crown's headquarters. The room looked exactly as it had in his house, down to the worn leather chair where he used to tell me stories about geology and business opportunities. Sarah knocked softly, Miss Bennett. The new environmental impact reports are in, and your mother is in the lobby again. I picked up an old photograph from my desk. My grandfather standing on the same desert land 40 years ago, already planning for a future only he could see. What would you do? Grandpa, I whispered to his image as if answer, I remembered one of our last conversations. Success isn't about proving others wrong. Alex, he'd said, it's about proving yourself right. I turned to Sarah. Tell my mother she can schedule a meeting through proper channels. Like everyone else through my office windows, I could see the desert stretching to the horizon, no longer worthless, but transformed into something extraordinary. Solar panels glinted beside oil derricks, while innovative lithium extraction facilities showed how old and new energy could coexist. My phone buzzed. Another message from Uncle James. The family firm stock is dropping. We need to discuss. I deleted it without reading further. Let them watch from the sidelines. I had an energy revolution to lead. The worthless desert had given me more than just wealth. It had given me the chance to prove that success comes in many forms, that the future belongs to those who can see beyond the surface, and that sometimes the best revenge is building something so magnificent that those who doubted you can't ignore it. I sat down at my grandfather's old desk, reviewing plans for our newest innovation, a breakthrough in sustainable lithium extraction that would revolutionize the entire industry. Outside, the Texas sun set over my empire, painting the worthless desert in shades of gold. Sometimes the greatest legacies aren't the ones we inherit, but the ones we build ourselves. And I was just getting started.